because there's other aspects to the story of what God is doing, our relationship, our interaction with God, and what God is doing. And as an example of our relationship and rewards, I want to use the Sermon on the Mount. And I want to use that because when we think about rewards, people, when they want to be awarded something, it's something that they find of value, something that oftentimes that they want as a reward. And when we find that there's a reward in our future, we tend to strive for that, whether it be a political reward where you gain office, whether it be authority, whether it be a power. And so we have to kind of ask ourselves, what kind of award would I like? What kind of reward would I like? And in this particular case, we're talking, in essence, to God and saying, well, what's in this for me? I know it sounds a bit selfish on the one hand, but let's take a look at what Jesus has to say, because actually Jesus brings up the subject of awards or rewards for our actions and how we live in life. And you think, well, now this gets rather interesting, so I want to read through the entirety, this first part of the Sermon on the Mount, what are called the Beatitudes. So we begin here now. Jesus, when he saw the crowds, verse 1 of Matthew 5, he went up on the mountainside, he sat down with his disciples, came to him, and he began to teach them, saying. So here is this conversation that Jesus is having with the disciples. And he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they'll be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Verse 11, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Then verse 12, Jesus says, rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. Whoa, reward? Now got my attention. Great is your reward in heaven, is what he tells them, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So Jesus brings up rewards in this regard. Now, we need to understand that rewards can be both good and bad. They can be temporal or they can be eternal. They can be immediate or they can be in the future. And sometimes in the distant future. And sometimes even feel like the impossible future. How long will it take? Will we ever get there? Are we there yet? When will this happen for me? Also, rewards can be tempting. So, hey, if I do this, you mean I get this? I get power? I get authority? Well, if I were God, I would have absolute authority. I could get people to do what I want them to do, or I could break their legs if they don't. I could have authority that's beyond the mafia and the like. So it can be a temptation for us. Or wow, if I'm rich, you know how much prettier people get when they get rich. Rich people are a lot prettier, even though they're ugly. Can be very, very ugly, and not only their appearance, but money changes things. If you don't believe that, see a woman from the head up driving in a red Corvette. And you think, well, that's a good-looking woman, and she may or may not be. Or a guy. You can look real handsome in a fancy car, a Lamborghini, a Maserati, or whatever. But then they step out, you get to know that, oh my, it was all about the car that got my attention. Or rewards can be trying, and as well, they can be very difficult. For example, you get rewarded by saving your money and over the years and saving for retirement. At the end, you have a reward. You're able to live. But it can be really hard, difficult to put away a few dollars a month so that you can invest there, and you can have something for the future. So again, Jesus gives us a perspective, though, on these rewards. He says, rejoice and be glad. Exceedingly glad is what he tells us in this regard. So I think all of us recognize that rewards promotes a certain amount of hope and a certain amount of happiness. They offer us hope. If you have a reward for doing what you're doing, you're rewarded for working hard, exercising, you lose weight, you feel good, and you get yourself in better shape. But Jesus said in this example here in Matthew chapter 5 that you have a great reward in heaven. This is no small reward that God has, Jesus is talking about. And the question, though, is, how do you get it out of heaven? Do I have to wait till heaven to get a reward from God? So rewards tend to be on people's mind, whether we admit it or not. So it's hard to have any kind of interactions without some kind of reward involved. Even the things you do, you work hard. I work in my garden, and I'm expecting a reward. I'm hoping for a reward that I'm going to get nice, juicy tomatoes, and that those tomatoes are going to be transformed into bruschetta, which is really awesomely good, and I'm going to enjoy the fruits of the garden. It's a reward that I'm willing to work for, dig and dung and water and all of those things so that I can be rewarded in that regard. I mean, that's just a very simple part of it. So we have interactions involved. And also part of the reward is just the satisfaction of doing something for someone that is a reward. Now, all of us as parents, we've done things for our kids, and we're rewarded when they feel good, things work out, or whatever. Doing something in and of itself for somebody else, we can find a reward in that as well. And then oftentimes we're rewarded, and whenever we are rewarded, and it's beyond our expectations, that really is good. You think, I'm reminded of the proverb where God says, he that finds a wife finds a good thing. My reward is beyond my expectation. And Jeanette is saying, yes, mine too, beyond my expectation. It's an incredible, when it's beyond your expectation. Keep that in mind, because we're going to touch on that a little bit later. Because you think of, oh, this is how good and wonderful, this would happen, that would be great. Now, I want to bring an example of the Apostle Peter. If we're talking about people, it's hard for us not to think about rewards. So, Peter, these are the things about disciples. You learn so much about disciples and what they do both good and what they do also that is bad. David, Peter, Paul, you, me, all of us. We learn from that, and hopefully we can appreciate it. In this particular example, Peter asked the question that everybody else wanted to ask, but it was a little bit afraid of asking. This is in Matthew chapter 19 and verse 27, where he suddenly got concerned about his reward. What was going to happen? So Peter answered him, says to Jesus, he says, look, Jesus, we have left everything to follow you. What then will be there for us? Another way of putting it, what's in it for us? What is it? We are following Christ. What is in it for us? Now, I'm going to suggest, and I hadn't thought about this until I was preparing the sermon yesterday, that this question would not have come up the way in which it came up if it hadn't been for the rich young ruler. You see, because this is right following the rich young ruler. And it gives you a different perspective and something that happens to all of us.
Feeling the blues today, or tired of life already? Do you have questions about life or need spiritual advice? The Worldwide Church of God is located in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto, California. We welcome everyone to attend our worship services with us every week at the times listed on your screen.